Today is the review day, so I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about the format for the test and whatnot, and then let you guys work on your reviews and or ask any specific individual questions you might have. Sound good? Okay. So the test format, you have two questions where I ask you to use your calculator to find the value of the angle. No interval is given on which your answer has to be found on. What does that mean you have to use for your interval? No.
Like the standard.
The range for the inverse function, right? So like sine is negative pi over 2 to positive pi over 2. Cosine is 0 to pi. Tangent is negative pi over 2 to positive pi over 2. Is your calculator going to do that for you automatically? Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, it'll like say it there.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's how the calculator is built. Okay. Find the exact value of the angle, no interval given. Since you're asking for an exact value, what do you have to use? Unit circle. Because no interval is given, what do you have to use as your interval?
The range.
The range. That you might have to be careful about, right? Everybody's cool? Okay. Two questions where I ask you to find the exact value of a composition. So like tangent of sine inverse of, like root 2 over 2 or something. Everybody's okay with that? What do you have to be careful there? No intervals, or it's an exact value question, so you're going to be using the unit circle, right? And what do you have to be careful about when you're doing the inverses? Since no interval is given, you have to use the range for the function, right? So you have to be a little bit careful there to make sure the signs are right, the S-I-G-N-S's, signs, not S-I-N-E-S's. One question I ask you to find the algebraic expression of the composition. We had a homework or a worksheet that was all about this, right? I think it was worksheet 4. So it's a problem like this on worksheet 4. That's what I'm talking about. Everybody's okay with that? We can do some examples if you need to later. Let me finish. Find the value of an angle on the given interval. It's a straight worksheet 2 problem, right? Everybody's cool? It's like a worksheet 2 problem. Like something like that. Right? 2 angle of elevation or angle of depression story problems. You might end up having to solve a system. Who knows? And then there's 1 navigation story problem. I've broken that problem into multiple parts where the answer for one part doesn't necessarily depend on the answer for the next part. So that, like, if you goof something up at the very first step, all your answers afterwards aren't wrong. But it's basically, I've broken into like one of these problems into 4 steps, and all the problems are like, all the parts are like independent of one another. So it's like different information for each step. But it's like, do step 1, like resolve these bearings into standard position angles. And then step 2 will be like, for blah, blah, the situation where standard position angles are this and this, that are not the answers to part A, like find the final position, the XY, like that's kind of the way I've written the problem. So it's like, it's not like if you do one thing wrong, like everything after that's wrong. It's just like you're doing one part of the process with like different numbers than you would have used for the previous part, but I'll give you the numbers that you need and kind of in that specific problem. Does that make sense? I hope so. It's doing the same process that you did on the navigation questions. I've broken it up and kind of given you the parts that you need for each step. Like it will be find the distance and I've given you the position, or find the final bearing and standard position angle where you have this XY. You know what I mean? So like I've given you the part that you would have needed to get, that you would have gotten in the process already, but it's not coming from anything prior to it. It's just like a fresh thing. You know what I mean? So it's just me trying to make it like you're not just butchered when you do something dumb in the beginning and like everything after it's the correct process but the wrong answer because you goobered something. Is that okay, Macy?
Are the first 6 questions for the worksheet 1?
Or well, like the exact value of a composition, I think that was like homework problems, you know, like 11 to 14. They would have been stuff like this. The exact value for the angle. This really would have been closer to like problems 1 through 6, and the next ones had been the first ones have been closer to problems like 7 through 10.
So are we thinking like 1 through 14 is the first 6 questions?
Probably. That's probably a pretty good preparation.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem. Rita, you had a hand.
Oh yeah. Can we do like by chance an example of like the angle of elevation kind of like solving a system, or like give it like rectify a problem like that?
Yeah, so I think that worksheet 3, the last 2 problems were both problems where you end up having to solve a system.
Okay.
And I know or maybe even the last 3 problems, this problem might be a system problem too. And I know in the notes on that day we did the last example in the notes on 1025, we ended up solving this system for the last example.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's another example.
Okay.
And I'm sure that one of these problems in the problem set, probably 23, was also a system problem. Sure. That was specific enough for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Sophia.
My OneNote says I no longer have permission to access the notebook.
Can you see everything that's in there though? Like, can you see the stuff in the content library? Sounds like an IT problem. It's not for.
Actually, yes, I can.
Oh, you can?
Yeah.
Some.
Like, we'll say to get information from any source, so I'm scared that like my homework isn't.
Why don't you go in? We'll deal with this in a second, you and me. We'll do a test to see if it's still doing what it's supposed to be doing. Sometimes you get weird errors that aren't really, I don't know what it's giving you an error for, but like it's doing everything we want it to do anyway still. So we'll do a test in a second, you and me. Sound good? Okay. Anybody else? Okie dokie. If you have specific questions for me, or you have stuff you want to look at, or something comes up you want to work through, feel free to come up and bother me. I'm just going to be sitting up here kind of doing my own stuff, okay?